mental health plays into that as well. If there isn't, like if you're not happy in your head and doing the things that you're doing, then that old saying, like, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Right.
Yeah. It's true.
It's true. Like, and it's, if we all pay attention to what we need and we write down what we need and we daily remind ourselves of what we need, then you can do anything. It's not impossible. So.
Yes. Hi, welcome to another episode of Mom Does It All. If you're looking for encouragement, empowerment, and uplifting in motherhood and mompreneurship, this is a show for you. I'm your host, Marta Spurk, triplet mom, success coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Today I'm going to be chatting with Michaela Ray. She's a creative director in the Twin Cities, focused on supporting women-owned businesses and mental health awareness. We talk a lot about using our kids not as excuses, but as a reason to go after what we want and also to set an example. This was a great chat. Let's get right to it. This episode is brought to you by the T Studio Shop. Get 15% off your entire purchase with code MOMDOESITALL. Hi, Michaela. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This will be fun. So just a little background. I met Michaela through Carrie Chavez when we were doing the Be Kind movement and all of that. She reached out to me, and I wanted to have her come on to share her story because it's really, really fascinating with photography, with fashion. I love all that stuff. And also talking about the shifts that happened with your career after you became a mom. So I kind of wanted you to go through your career story and also this shift with motherhood, and then we'll go over some other interesting things. So can you share a little bit more?
Sure. I graduated in 2008 at the economic crisis and couldn't find a job in photography in the Twin Cities. And so I went into corporate, and it was a great company that I worked for. They taught me my work ethic and what it means to work as a team and all these things. But when I got pregnant with my daughter and was on maternity leave, I just kept looking at her like, there's more to me than just this job and the cost of daycare and, all the things that us moms and parents, battle and struggle with of deciding what's right. And so I decided to stay home. My husband was kind enough and supportive enough to make that decision with me. And I took 2 years off and just stayed at home with her. I picked up a couple part-time jobs here and there just to keep myself in the socializing and with other moms and things like that. But I really focused on really what I wanted to do. I would write daily affirmations of where I wanted to be in a year or a month or 2 years. And I just started on Craigslist, and I would post, looking for models to shoot, or I would, reply to posts like that. And I just got connected, and the wheels just started going after that. And I got involved with a group of people that were doing kind of some nightlife things and some promotional events, and that fell through. And then I got through that met the editor-in-chief of the Volk magazine, Megan Lee, and her and I just really kicked it off. And the Volk, I always said the Volk was what I was looking for out of college, but it wasn't even existing yet. Megan Lee was in elementary school when I graduated, so. I just really, I took pride in our connection and our relationship, and it's just been a wonderful journey through that, being able to be a creative and work together as a team and have that utilize my work ethic and really help people. So it's a volunteer-based magazine. So we seek talent that is kind of starting out, fresh out of college, or, kind of starting their career over like myself, and help them build their portfolio and network and market. So it's a great learning tool, and I love the community that we're building around it in the fashion industry in Minnesota. It's a thriving one. We just wrapped up Fashion Week last week, and it was amazing to see the support and the community there. And I also direct a podcast called Blunt Cuts, and we hosted our first live podcast for Fashion Week.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time that Fashion Week had ever done anything like that too. So it was really cool, and we had a great turnout, and we're just getting the most amazing positive feedback from the event. So we had a live panel of women, and the podcast is focused on women and authenticity and creativity and just honest, blunt conversations about being a woman.
Right.
So over this time, and I mean, this is over 5 years that I've gotten to this point, and there have been struggles and roller coasters and highs and lows, but I finally am seeing my freelance life come to something. So
yeah, I love that. And it's such an interesting story to me, because it shows that it's not a linear path, right? It's up and downs, and because you're kind of finding yourself as well, what you like, connecting with people, making these connections, just like you said. And one of the things that you mentioned that I do want to expand on is that even though you decided to stay home with your daughter, you didn't stop. You were still working, and you had a plan, right? You had those goals, you set those goals, and you had a vision, and you were doing these affirmations. Can you walk us through that process a little bit? Like, how did you figure this out? Like, okay, I have to do this. Was it something that you did daily? Because that's one of the things that I have been doing, especially for the moms out there that start with network marketing or starting their own business. I know they try to go through this process because you're doing it on your own. You don't have a boss telling you what to do. So it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now? And you have to create these plans. So can you share what you did? Because obviously it worked.
Right. So I used a bunch of different, scenarios and lists and all sorts of things. But the things that helped me was just daily waking up and writing down what I wanted to accomplish that day. And it could be as little as just getting the laundry and that one email put together and sent, to preparing for a networking event. So I work very well on to-do lists. If I have a to-do list in front of me, I will get it done, or it haunts me, kind of thing. So it worked really well. And some days that to-do list had 3 things on it. And some days, right now, my to-do list has like 10 things on it. And so it was just really, I needed to visually see it. And I would, use pretty markers and make it look as not as scary as it was. But just to visually see it and cross it off, and just have that accomplishment that is done. And also networking. I didn't look at, when I was taking those little part-time jobs, when I was on my 2-year, job break with my daughter, I was constantly talking about ways of improving the businesses. I worked for, a local kids carousel, it was called, and it was like a kids thrift store. And I was constantly trying to think of new marketing campaigns or having ideas of how to do this. Or I worked for a restaurant and, taking over their social media and doing posts. So I was constantly trying to see what I could do to better these relationships and these businesses. And that really helped me understand. And I kind of did that at my corporate job, kind of filled the holes or saw holes and tried to, work smarter, not harder kind of mentality. And I've just really stuck to that in the last 5 years of, I don't do anything unless it makes sense for my business or my family or the business or the brand I'm trying to help. So, I really try to focus on it being important. Some of that stuff just goes by and you're like, oh, I wasted all that time on this thing and it didn't really get me anywhere. And so if you can kind of set your goals to, this is exactly what I want, and I mean, I had a goal 5 years ago to produce a Fashion Week event. And I wrote that on a piece of paper after only researching Fashion Week Minnesota for 5 minutes. And so, and it took me 5 years to get there, but in that time, I wasn't like, oh, this is my end game. This is what I'm working towards, all these things. It was just on a piece of paper and it just naturally happened. So I'm a big believer. Yeah. Set that intention, scream it into the universe. You know, if all you want to do is work out 2 days a week, scream into the universe, I'm going to the gym Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or, you know, if you want to go to those mommy meetups or, you know, or workshops and things like that, like say into the universe, I'm going to take this time for myself to learn how to do this, or to, you know, socialize with other moms or socialize with other working women, and do it. And it sounds easy, but it is.
Right.
So
it's so simple that sometimes we decide not to do it because it seems like it's not going to work or it's not going to be enough. But really, it's so silly because by not doing it, you're actually not getting what you could potentially have if you just, you know, trusted that setting this intention is going to get you there eventually. Because especially in today's society, we're so focused on immediate solutions, right? Instant gratification. We don't realize that things take time and we're not very patient to wait. And if we just set that intention, just like what you said, eventually things will come together if you don't stop. And that's one thing that I have been talking about too, because I know several moms that are content with, you know, being stay-at-home moms and being there for their kids. And there are some other moms that are still thinking about their career and still thinking about what am I going to do once the kids go to school, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's different. And so for the moms that are feeling like that, you know, I have to take this break, but I do want to do something else. I think your story just proves that it's not that you can't do anything. You can still take steps towards what you want. So it's not like you're completely, you know, stuck and not doing anything, because eventually it will lead somewhere, and it might take 5 years, but, and then you will feel so fulfilled and be so thankful that you actually took those steps when you were.
Well, and a big part of, you know, the mom side of things, I didn't want to, I kept hearing, or I'd hear stories, whether in movies or in real life or whatever, like, that, oh, I would have been on Broadway if I wouldn't have got pregnant, or, oh, I would have been the CEO if I wouldn't have had my second child, and things like that. And I just didn't want to put that pressure on my daughter of watching her mom, or her growing up watching her mom be this something that she wasn't.
Right.
And so in this process, and this is something that only kind of came, you know, full circle for, I understood kind of what this all means, is like when she started kindergarten this year, that I had been waiting for this kindergarten break of me being able to go back to work and not have to pay for daycare and things like that. And it just made me realize that for the last 5 years, I've just been working on this goal of setting myself up to do whatever the job that I created today. And it really made me proud. It made me proud of her for being so awesome, of going to kindergarten and doing such a great job, but also so proud of myself for not quitting.
Right.
And even though I wanted to, in many discussions with my husband about how none of this makes sense, and how, you know, the time spent away is time she'll miss. And that I understand. But at the same time, I'm very focused on my career and my creativity, and, you know, mental health plays into that as well. If there isn't, like, if you're not happy in your head and doing the things that you're doing, then no, you know, that old saying, like, if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. Right.
Yeah. It's true.
It's true. Like, and it's silly, but it's true. Like, and it's, you know, take out mama and just put in human. Like, if we all pay attention to what we need, and we write down what we need, and we daily remind ourselves of what we need, then you can do anything. It's not impossible. So that one part when you talked about her starting kindergarten, it just gave me chills, because my kids are 2.5 right now, and we're looking into getting them started into preschool next year when they turn 3. And I've been waiting for this it seems like for a long time. It's been 2.5 years, but with triplets, it's pretty intense. That is intense.
When I realized, okay, it's here, it's going to happen, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm ready for this. I've been waiting for this, for them to be away so that I can work on my stuff. And now it's like, it's just that what you said. I'm glad I've been taking steps at the same time that it's frustrating because you want to keep going and you can't.
Yep.
I'm also glad that I've been there for them and we've been together this entire time. So I love what you said about, you know, being patient and enjoying what you're doing as a stay-at-home mom until you can take those extra steps when they start school. So I wanted you to share, what is your advice? What is your message to a mom that used to have a career or was still trying to find herself, and then she got pregnant and now she has this baby and she's thinking, you know, my life is over, or, you know, I can't pursue anything right now because I have to dedicate all of my time to this baby. What is your advice for this mom?
Well, and everyone's different. And, you know, if that mom got pregnant and let's say they were spending a lot of time, I'm just going to use this as an example, but let's say they were spending a lot of time volunteering at like an animal shelter, and their goal of volunteering was to own an animal shelter, and then, got pregnant, and now that kind of dream is out the window. Now you have this baby who you're going to stay home with, who kids love animals, you know? So this is my example, but you see where I'm going of you incorporate your family in the thing that you love, right? You know, the fashion industry isn't very kid friendly, but a year ago, I partnered with a friend of mine in Iowa who was working on a kid's clothing line and put her line in our fashion show. We made it open. It was a holiday show, or a summer show, sorry. And we invited all ages. I mean, the charity we support is for high school girls. So we wanted this all ages show. So I think that there's this lost thing of, well, I can't be who I am because I have this child who can't come with me or can't do that, you know, understanding that our kids are our future, and they are the future people that will be running this world. So what kind of person do you want, you know, representing you, I guess? And I'm really focused on that. So I say my advice is, if you want the things that you want, don't be afraid. Your kid is not going to judge you for doing that. They will support you. You know, fast forward 5 years to that mom, she has an animal shelter of her own, and her family is involved in it. And that her kid is going to grow up and be like, I watched my mom start with nothing. And now she's got 10 shelters and she's saved millions of animals, you know? So I'm not saying that I'm saving animals or lives or in any way, but I'm really aware of the community that I'm raising my daughter in. And being an artist, my husband and I both being creatives, I really want her to accept that community. And going back to when I graduated, that community was not there. And seeing the progression now 10 years, I can only imagine what 10 more years is going to be. So my advice is to not give up, I guess, you know, like if you really want something, you will make it happen. And the people that really want something and say, oh, I can't do that today because it's raining outside, or I can't do that today because I don't have a ride or a car or the money. Like, I haven't had any money for the last 5 years, and I'm sitting here happy and still doing what I love. So you're only creating your roadblocks yourself. So don't put up roadblocks and it'll be fine.
That's right. And I love what you said earlier too, about not putting that pressure on your daughter which is what I'd said before in previous episodes. We use our kids as excuses.
Yes.
And then instead of being the reason why I can do anything right now, really.
Yep. So that idea of our kid, using a kid as an excuse. Oh, you know, and trust me, I've used my kid as an excuse to get out of things. But I don't ever want to, you know, she's the reason why I'm here right now talking to you today. You know, she wasn't an accident. She was planned, and I've planned my whole life in a sense. So I don't want her to look back on her being 5, 6, 7 and be like, oh, this happened and now my mom works all the time. Right. I'm trying to do something or create something that involves her future.
Yes. And I remember when you reached out to me, one of the things that you said was about Meg Brunson's episode, because she talks about involving her kids and everything. That is so important, because then they will learn from your experience as an entrepreneur and things like that too. So that's super awesome. So what are some ways that people can find you and reach out to you? So I remember you mentioned the magazine and the podcast. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yes. So you can find me at Michaela Ray Photo on Instagram and on Facebook and all around. The magazine is the Volk Magazine, at the Volk Magazine, and the podcast is at bluntcuts_podcast on Instagram.
Nice.
You can find the podcast on iTunes or Podbean. The magazine, you can order issues. We do publish quarterly, so and sign up for the newsletter and all that kind of stuff. So you can find everything on the magazine at thevolkmagazine.com. Same with the bluntcutspodcast.com as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, this was so awesome. Such a nice message. So encouraging and motivating for moms that might be feeling a little bit down on themselves. The ones that want to pursue something, all of the things that we said. So thank you so much for joining us, Michaela. This is great.
Thank you so much.
Are you feeling more encouraged to set intention and start taking steps towards your dreams, mama? Then I've done my job. I appreciate you listening to the show so much. And if you haven't already, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. This is actually the best way to make sure Mom Does It All gets more exposure and reaches more mamas all over. And if you want someone to be interviewed on the show, or if you would like to be on the show yourself, fill out the form on my website, martaspurk.coach/contact, and I'll be in touch. Until next time, bye.